All right, Love of the Links podcast. We're sticking to the technology theme. We just added for tomorrow night, we're going to get a little bit off the technology theme. We're going to talk to the folks at PGA Junior League and see what they're doing, considering everything that we're going through. But I'm really stoked to have Ryan Burke here tonight with Blast Motion. We were just talking before I started recording. I'm one of those start and stops with Blast, but because of everything that's been going on, like a lot of things, I've been doing a lot of online certifications and really diving back into the technology. And one of the things that impresses me most, Ryan, about Blast is the price point for the consumer or the instructor, whoever's buying the units, is incredible. But for everything that comes with it, and now you're going to talk a little bit about some of your updates and some of the future updates. It's wild. So, but before we dive into that, tell me a little bit about yourself, your path in this industry, and we'll start there. Welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. You know, this is as scary of a time this is, it's also a great opportunity for companies like ourselves to really get some time in front of our professionals. And, you know, I'm no different. I started at the PGM program at Idaho. I went down the PGA route. I've been an assistant head professional director of golf. And then in an effort to better myself as a teacher, I started looking into technologies. And one of that I started with was MySwing, which was 3D motion capture. So I approached there looking to bring that into my teaching and figure out how to build a platform of education, right? I think all young teachers are trying to figure something to hang their hat on and say, I'm really good at this. I understand this. And we're always continuing to grow. And, you know, as golf professionals, you know, the teaching and coaching summits and so many of these things are so important. When I approached them, I was so fascinated with the technology and they were just getting started. I helped create that platform and then was there for some time and ended up moving over to KBest, which is another inertial sensor motion capture technology. So I really started to love that arena in talking to the coaches and having that common ground to be able to say, listen, you don't need all these features. What's the practical application? What is your background? What do you teach? How do you teach? And how can I support you? And I think that's been giving me the most success and value in what I do, is to be able to be that conduit between the players and coaches. So when I was offered the opportunity to come on Blast and really push Blast forward, I jumped at the opportunity, right? We had prior to our 410 launch, you know, we had the same app and software for a good period of time there. So to be able to ultimately rebuild the engine as we would over the last 14 months, we put a great deal of effort into it. Our development team did a fantastic job and ultimately identifying, you know, what do we do really, really well and what do our coaches actually use? We focused on those areas, emphasized those, made it easier to navigate, and then rebuilt the engine, right? We're rebuilding this car and we created this new engine. So while there is some great new additions of 410, the real direction is we built the engine to create our next release. And we will have a next release coming towards the beginning to middle of next year. And we'll touch on that as we go a little bit more, but it's very exciting, right? With this 410, you know, we've already added basically the biggest gap you had in Blast. And, you know, before we were a incredibly good short game product, and we were a very good full swing, but we didn't have anything between, right? And we know what those percentages of shots inside of 100 are, and we saw Blast as having that big gap, and that's what we filled out with 410. And, you know, we've been very successful with that, and we're seeing huge growth during this time because we have a captive audience, and they're starting to understand the true value of what Blast offers. To your point, you know, even at retail, we're a $150 product that provides so many performance insights, whether that's loft, lie, face rotation, tempo, timing. We do auto capture on video. There's so many great things. You don't need to know them all to be able to get the value out of there. And now that we're doing this promotion and allowing people to buy the latest generation sensor for $75, I mean, what a great time we have to really understand this technology and come out of this quarantine better professionals and ready to engage with our players. And, you know, there's some that are much better off with remote coaching and some that are still struggling to catch up because they didn't see that as the future path. And I think this is the first glimpse in understanding that we've got to be better as professionals in tapping into other revenue opportunities. And remote coaching is absolutely one of those. And what Blast does is provides metrics to back up your teaching remotely, right? So we have a lot of opportunity to make your players better and for them to really buy in to your teaching and coaching.
No, and that last thought about the changing tide here, it was going to happen anyways, where coaching was going to transform. But, you know, it's really this current situation has pushed a lot of instructors, including myself, into doing this. I'm excited about it because, you know, this is the route I've wanted to go for a long time, because I feel it really, and especially for me, where a bulk of my students are, my private lesson students are between like 10 and 15, 16. They're busy. They're super busy. So scheduling those face-to-face times are difficult, especially, you know, right now. I'd rather have a lot of bite size throughout the week, 15, 20 minutes, sharing stuff intermediately between those sessions through the technology, whether it's Coach Now or using apps or using products like yours. I think it's more conducive for the way kids' schedules are. And I think we as coaches can be a lot better and serve our students better. But I think in turn, the students can embrace the process a little bit more than they would during a typical series of lessons.
Completely agree. We talk in the technology space, we talk about paradigm shifts. And, you know, you look at the age of the internet, and that, you know, that rose up and it changed the way that we function as a society. And I think that, you know, what's going on in our current, pandemic is another paradigm shift. We're seeing this change, and technology is going to play a bigger role. You know, we're not going to go back to the same sales channels that we did before, where you're on the road all the time, right? This Zoom media, this is the future of where we're going. And, you know, obviously those that are in the technology space and are far ahead of the curve. And this is a fast moving process. And, you know, I always encourage our pros, you know, you got to get on now, because this is only going to get more and more difficult for you to catch up to your peers in the industry if you don't tip your, you know, toe in the water now. And, you know, like going back to Blast is a product that allows easy consumption, right? There's some things that you can get right out of the package that's going to give you that value, and you're also able to dive in deeper. And that's true for all the technologies, right? You got to find, you know, what aspects of these technologies fit into your coaching and implement them, use them. You know, to your point with your students, you know, when they're at an event and they're in the hotel room, right, for them to roll a few putts on the carpet, that's great, and we want them to do that. But I want them to roll that knowing, hey, I need a repeatable tempo, and I need to make sure that that face angle at impact is the same as I had when I was with my coach, right? We're priming and getting them ready. And, you know, we'll talk about it more, but, you know, our addition to short game and bunker play absolutely plays an effect with your players in travel, right? Like, this gives them the opportunity to validate that they're doing the stuff that you coach them on the lesson tee prior.
Sure. Yep. And a lot of times that message may stick within an hour face-to-face, but that time in between is so valuable between that one-on-one to the next one-on-one. And a lot of stuff gets lost in translation, I feel. Like, they can get it while they're with you, and then you want them to work on a certain move or something you're working with short game, so you don't have to repeat what you did the prior lesson when you're going to the next lesson. And that's the beauty of stuff like this. So let's do this, Ryan. Somebody that has never heard of you guys stumbles upon you, the quick 360-degree look at what the product is, and then maybe jump into the new update.
Yeah, well, you know, for me, I believe that Blast is first and foremost a timing and tempo product. I think that is the most value. I see, you know, in the group of professionals, I see that that's what a lot of them gravitate towards. We know, you know, a lot of people talk about rhythm and timing and tempo, but what our players, their understanding is far limited based on that, right? They don't understand what their tempo is. They very rarely are repeating that tempo in their golf swing. Right? We're dealing with people that might only play twice a month, and they have a struggle in finding that. So, you know, being able to put Blast in, and, you know, I always stand by, you know, we provide the numbers. We tell you what it is. We're not necessarily driving you in. You know, a lot of people understand tempo. When, You know, Faxon talks about it. We talk about a 2-to-1 timing tempo in the putting. So 2-to-1, which means your backstroke length, let's call it 0.6 seconds. Your forward stroke 0.3. You divide those two, that's 2-to-1, right? We have over 200 PGA Tour professionals. We capture all this data. We analyze this, and we're not the only technology that's analyzed the elite players here, but we look at, you know, the spectrum is ultimately 1.8 to 1 and 2.2 to 1 and anything in between. So that 2-to-1 ratio is just dead in the middle of those numbers, right? So we've got guys on tour that if we tried to put it 2-0, they'd say, man, that's super slow, right? We've got guys, you know, you look at like the Brandt Snedekers of the world, right? Yep. They're a little faster tempo, right? I wouldn't doubt that he's probably 1.8 to 1, but he repeats that golf swing. And then there's guys on the slower spectrum that are going to be towards 2.2. You know, so it's about finding your repeatable tempo and then being able to do that across all the clubs in your bag, right? Your tempo changes throughout the bag, but with putting, for instance, we talk about, you know, I get a guy on the lesson tee, I say, you know, what is your go-to putt that you feel like you're going to make, right? And a lot of guys will say, hey, it's a 10-footer. I feel like my best putts are inside of 10 feet. So I'll put them at 10 feet. I'll have them hit 10 putts from 10 feet, and I'll look at their metrics. And more times than not, when they go to the spot that they're most comfortable with, I'm seeing that repeatable tempo. But then I'll put them at 4 feet, right? And I'm going, well, now in your brain, you say you have to make this. At 10 feet, it was, nobody's going to give me grief if I don't make these. But at 4 feet, boy, they say that I should be making more than half of these, right? So we get there, and then we look at that tempo, and that tempo has changed dramatically, right? Or maybe their lag putting's off, and we go, wow, once you get outside of 15 feet, the tempo changes entirely. So we have the ability to find that club in your bag, find the repeatable tempo that for your golf swing, and then go back to that when things go wrong, right? This is a way for you to prime yourself for the round of golf. I get guys that do, you know, they'll hit 10 putts from 10 feet and they'll hit 10 putts from 4 feet, and then they'll do some lag putting from various distances, and all they're looking at is the tempo, right? They're not, at that point in time, they're ready to play, so they're not diving into analytics, but they want to make sure that they've got that something to hang their hat on and say, you know what, I've got my putting game today. And maybe that's just face at impact. Maybe this is a guy that says, you know, I just want to make sure that I'm as close to square at impact as possible. And that's what they're looking at. So our product allows you to, you know, to really get ready for a round, or to be able to, great point right now is sitting in the house, right? We're going crazy going, you know, I haven't been able to swing a club in this long, but you know what? I can hit into a net and I can get swing speed, right? Very simply, you know, Bill Abrams was on with us a couple days ago and talking about how he uses blast, and he talked a lot about the speed metric. And he goes, you know what? I want someone to take a 6-iron and I want them to hit it at 50 miles an hour, and then I want them to hit it at their full speed, and then I want to dial it back, and I want them to be able to repeat those so that they can start figuring out how to get consistent speeds across the bag, right? We have, I'm sure you do too, I've got players that are very good at full swings, right? They're so used to ripping full swings all day, but I say, all right, well, hit that 8-iron 100 yards and it's game over, right? Yeah. So this gives me the opportunity for that guy to be in the backyard hitting into a net without any other opportunities on technology, and saying, yeah, I'm starting to be able to make solid contact from different speeds with this club. And again, that plays right into what we talk about, tempo, right? If they can maintain the tempo of their golf swing at different lengths, we are going to create a much better golfer at any level.
Well, this is what separates the best golfers in the world from the rest of us, is they're able to do that. And like you said, you know, I watched something that Tiger was talking about on the thing he did with Golf Digest, the series of interviews, and he was talking about how he loves to take a club like an 8-iron, like you said, and hit it 170, hit it 100, you know, and how does that work for the average golfer? It's a foreign concept, like you were talking about, for most of them, because all they know is ripping the full swing. They don't know how to dial it down and really utilize tempo and work with tempo. And there's been some good stuff, metronomes I've used in the past, things like that, but nothing can really compare to what you guys have, the product itself, the product that's on the club itself.
Well, you know, and one of the features, the feature that I probably like the most for my own golf game is the auto capture feature. And it's funny, I talk to professionals constantly that have been using Blast for years, and they don't understand the auto capture feature. I mean, you can set your camera up down the line or face on, hit record, stand on the lesson tee for 20 minutes without hitting a shot, and then hit 4 shots, go back and stop the video, and you've got 4 perfectly clipped 3-second videos with all your metrics on there. So your player in the backyard can now auto clip these videos and send them to their coach without the 20-minute long hit after hit with no context, right? I can say, okay, you sent me 6 shots, right? And this is the variation that I'm seeing in those 6 shots, going back to our tempo. But to be able to auto capture like that, you know, I think that is a huge benefit, especially when we're sitting at home by ourselves, trying to figure out how to get quality video sent to our coach, or to analyze yourself, right? We want to educate our players, and for them to be able to look at the video and see the metrics, they can start to educate themselves a little bit. But at the end of the day, you know, they still need the coach to put in the right direction, and we're never going to change that, right? We want to be able to show them, you know, show them the metrics. You know, we talked about it with, you know, hitting the 8-iron at 50%, right? Most guys don't know how to do it, and mostly it's going to be sequencing, right? Their sequences only match up at full swing. So once they start hitting those smaller shots, not only are we going to be able to show them that there needs to be changes in the golf swing, but we're going to educate them in how that body moves and how to improve as a golfer.
Yeah. So like I said before we started recording, I'm excited about the update. Can you jump into that and talk about, as you talked about before we started the podcast, where you guys were kind of lacking before this update came out?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we talked about it briefly with, you know, we are an excellent putting tool. We are a very good full swing tool, but in between we just didn't have it, right? And that is bunker, that is shots inside of 75 yards at all the different trajectories using different clubs. And that's something that required even a more accurate sensor than we currently have. So we just launched our 3rd generation sensor April 1st when the launch came out. Everything with the 3G sensor is accessible in our app. Those that have the generation 1 sensor still going to be able to use all the putting and full swing, but you know, when it comes to bunker play in particular, that's a very difficult thing to capture because you're not making a very big impact. And those that understand inertial sensors, that thing needs to shake. That needs to say, okay, there was impact, and go back in time and say, okay, there was our golf swing. And so being able to, you know, improve algorithms and improve the hardware itself, it's allowed us to be able to fill that bag out. So you're able to hit any shot in your bag with any club and be able to identify that tempo, timing, the length of the golf swing. So you're able to say, okay, what does my timing look like when I hit a 60-degree from the side of the green? Okay, well, let's see what my timing is when I use an 8-iron or a pitching wedge. And right, if I could have it my way, I want to drive more people into less lofted clubs around the green. And so I'll put a session and say, you hit 10 shots with your go-to 60-degree club around the green, and then I'm going to have you hit 10 shots with a club that I choose, and let's see what kind of results we look at. And that helps validate the information, right? Wow, boy, if I get it on the ground a little faster, look at that. My misses aren't so bad. My grouping is a little bit smaller. And again, it goes back to validating what we already know, but what we're trying to illustrate to our players. So that 410 allowed us to be able to complete that bag, to rebuild the engine of Blast 410, to be able to build a lot of things upon that. So the shell, the navigation, the usability is all vastly improved. We've also added peak hand speed metric for full swing. So now you're going to know where that peak hand speed happened. So, you know, you look at it and it's somewhere 80+% of the downswing is where peak hand speed is going to be on full swing, right? Because we're kinematic sequence, we're transferring that energy. That may not be the case for all the shots in the golf bag, but we know if you're releasing too soon or releasing too late. So a great feature that we added now, we've also done angle of attack, whether it's down, even, or up for full swing. So with the driver, right, a lot of your players, you know, are always hitting down on the driver. So to be able to get that visual and say, here's your swing speed, and look, you are actually at a positive angle of attack, or you're at at least level angle of attack. Those are some great additions. But what we plan to do, what we're doing at 6.0 as we progress, is to be more engaged with our students. So adding games and challenges and assessments, utilizing many of the new features that are out there. You know, Surrey is a great asset, right? So Many people, I do it in particular, mostly because I don't want my phone calling out tempo on the practice screen. I put in my headphones, and that may be the only metric that I'm doing. So I'm just, I'm not creating even a session. I'm just live putting and going around the green putting and going, it'll say, tempo 2-to-1, tempo 1.6-to-1. So I know when I'm going away from it. So this can be a great complementary item on the green, not necessarily diving into the analytics, but just something to focus on rather than just did the ball go in the hole or not. So 6.0 is where we're going. That's the future. That's adding a lot of this ecosystem, being able to have intelligent insights, right? So if you have let's say you start a session of 10 putts, we're going to be able to look at that data and based on the data saying, what's the biggest outlier here, right? If you're hitting 10 putts from 10 feet on a flat surface and your backstroke length is varying by 6 or 7 inches, we know that that's probably where your inconsistencies are happening. So being able to just identify that block of data and say, in our opinion, this is where you should go. And then on top of that saying, hey, here's a great drill that one of our coaches provided us to get better. So, we're showing them the information, telling them where the outliers are, telling them where the good stuff is too, right? That's something that we really are going to strive for in 6.0 is highlighting the positives and showing the negatives as well. We've got to, our players do have to fail and they do have to see that they're not within some numbers, but they also need to see, what are we doing well, right? What are some of the dynamics of the putter or the full swing that we do really well so that we can keep them motivated and saying, let's figure out how we can get the best of all of these numbers.
Yeah, and it's not just the sensor you guys have. It's not just the app that's associated with the sensor, but I just pulled it up on my other monitor here. It's that sense of community that you've created with Blast Connect, which is where it dumps in the data from a session, and then the coach and the student can work together and really formulate a plan based on what you're going through in the lesson. I really, really love Blast Connect, how coaches can put plans together, put workouts together. It's a really, really cool tool.
Yeah, and that's going to evolve. We know that, the future is more in-app, right? We see less and less people in front of their computer. However, we want, I would say my goal is that 90% of what we do lives inside the app and 10% lives on Blast Connect. It doesn't mean that 90% of that doesn't transfer over to Blast Connect as well. But I want our, most of our pros are mobile, right? They don't have a dedicated space. We need for them to be able to use the majority of the functions through the app or through the tablet. But there are great opportunities, like you said with Blast Connect, to be able to bring the coach and players together, for your players to have all of their own sensors, for you to be able to see very simply as a babysitter, how many of my players are doing how many shots a day. Yep. I would say that's what the vast majority of our coaches right now are using it for, is to be able to get that accountability, right? We can say, 6.0, that is where we're going to institute a lot more games and challenges and assessments. And, ideally the opportunity for you to send some challenges and assessments to your players and then get those responses back and be able to do, live leaderboards. Those are the future interactive experiences that we want to have with Blast. And that is what's on the forefront. It's just, the timelines, it all depends on what we decide to tackle first. And a lot of that's going to come directly from our coaches. So, we spend a great deal of time reaching out to our current clients and saying, what do you use? What don't you use? We pull analytics from our navigation within our app and say, if everybody is going to Just Putt, do we need to have a calendar and a list of all the activities that you've done, right? How do we make this as simple and easy to digest as possible? And I think 410 solved a lot of that. But no doubt over the next month, as people get more acclimated to it, they're going to find more efficient ways to use it, or more efficient ways for us to adapt this app for a better customer coach relationship.
Yeah, very, very cool stuff. And golf's not the only thing you guys do. You're heavily in baseball and softball. When Blast first came online, was that the initial thing? Was it baseball, softball, and then golf came on secondly? Is that how this kind of evolved?
No, you know what? We have a large group of developers at our office, and they are very, very creative. We got our start in golf. Golf was the platform. Okay. We have, I want to say nearly 50 patents and a great deal of patents that are still pending as well. which really solidifies a lot of the technology, right? That sensor on the end of a club on a bat, that's really our market right now, right? There are some other technologies out there, but they're unable to put it in the same position as we are, and that limits some of the opportunity. And I think we've done really well at doing that. We expanded into baseball and softball. Baseball and softball are team programs, so that just naturally evolved very, very quickly, right? We've got programs that are prescribing a sensor to every player on their team, and they're getting hitting insights. You know, one of the main things on baseball and softball is PCR, which is plane, connection, and rotation, right? These are all the analytics of baseball and softball. So they can get numerical output on their efficiency within those three buckets, and it's impressive, right? And this is also moving, you know, our tool is used in recruiting and, you know, and understanding who has maybe the most talent and who is the best numbers, right? And that's not always an easy correlation, right? You got guys that maybe maxed out on their potential or very close to maxed out, and then we've got people that are just naturally gifted, and if we put a little bit more effort into their hitting mechanics, and that's the same in golf, there's people that have far more opportunity for growth than others, and in baseball and softball, I think they identified it very quickly, and they've taken off, right? The vast majority of the Major League Baseball uses our sensor in their training. So they're getting these insights, and they're looking at collegiate teams and saying, you know, who are their best hitters, and, you know, wanting access to a lot of that information as well. So you know, we know that we live in an information age, and baseball and softball might be a little bit more ahead of us when it comes to sharing information across organizations, but golf is no different. You look at these, you know, these high junior academies, you know, you got guys like Rob Holding up in Canada that's got a dedicated space that's churning out, you know, elite juniors day in and day out, right? They need that information. They need to figure out how to separate themselves consistently. And I think those that adopt technology are the ones that are going to set themselves apart and give their students the best chance for success, whether it's in golf or any other aspect that they're in.
You know, and one of your mainstay, I would think, with the sensor and the platform is the tempo piece. But you've got the smart video capture that is just as cool. If that was the only thing you guys did was just the smart video capture, that by itself would be pretty cool. But we want to speak on that real quick.
Yeah, I mean, that was what I liked the most. You know, being able to just set the phone down the line or face on, hit record, and take your time, right? I'll go to the range and maybe I hit 10 shots over the course of 20 minutes because I'm positions and all this other stuff when you're tinkering around with your own golf swing and coming up with concepts. I can go back and have those 10 shots auto-clipped. If you do have premium services like we talked about with Blast Connect, that also gives you video annotation tools, your audio, your side-by-side. So, you know, everything that you do with maybe some of the other video capture tools is within ours. You can draw lines, you can do the circles, you can do side-by-side comparisons. As a coach, you can have a player send that auto-clipped video to you. You can add the video, you can draw the lines, you can play in slow back, you know, you can scroll back and forth to be able to see the positions in the golf swing. Like you said, if that was the only tool that I had with Blast, I would be happy for it. And I at one point in time, I said, why don't we just release another product that's just that? Because it's easy to digest and people would buy that as well. But, you know, they want this to be an all-in-one tool. And, you know, I certainly appreciate that they want to pack as much valuable information into a very economical package, right? I think they're crazy at times, but they continue to really outperform the price point.
Yeah, that was the remark I was just going to make is you really, this is a piece of technology that any golfer shouldn't really overlook, because at the price point of $149.95, I believe it is normal retail, but right now you guys are running 50% off, $75. Is that what you're selling them for now?
$75 direct to your door. It's insane, right? This, you know, and this is something that'll run probably at least for through probably May 31st, and then I have a hard time thinking we'll ever get below 150 again. I mean, there is so much value there. You know, I've told a lot of my coaches, you know, we got a lot of guys that will provide a sensor to all their students in their academy, or they'll do a one-day putting clinic, and part of that is the coach literally going from station to station and setting up the ranges and the goals for that individual player and saying, you know what, these are broad ranges based on you. You know, not every 26 handicapper is a 26 handicap putter, right? There are some incredibly good putters that are terrible full swing and vice versa. So, you know, to be able to adjust goals for putting on the lesson tee, and then be able to have them take that away and go home and talk about it, right? And say, man, I just, you know, he just showed me this is what my face needs to be at impact. And people see that education that you've provided their students, and you're going to fill your lesson tee, right? When people understand that you're educating your players more than the one and done, right? The one-off lessons is a recipe for disaster. And I think, you know, I've reached out to a number of coaches that said that was my lifeline. That was my lifeblood. And now that I need to try to figure out how to get more reoccurring lessons, and there's, you know, that's just not possible at a daily fee course when nobody is spending any more time than checking in and going straight to the golf cart. You know, these are the times you need to focus on this and really reevaluate, you know, how you manage your lesson book. And, you know, I think Blast, it's not going to be the only thing in your arsenal, but I think it's a great first step or addition to what you currently have.
And honestly, I feel like golf professionals don't give themselves enough credit. I think they're much smarter than a lot of them think they are. And this stuff is not anything to be afraid of. The learning curve is not very difficult, especially with all the tutorials and videos and everything you guys put out. So before we wrap this up, where are some places people can go to get information? Obviously, blastmotion.com. But anything, YouTube channels or anything else like that?
Oh yeah, we've got our YouTube channel, we've got our Instagram, our Facebook. We put a lot of content out there. If you download the app is free on the App Store. You can download the app, create your profile, and navigate it. Look at what it is. See the comfort level of how you navigate. I promise you, it's no different than pairing your Bluetooth headset, right? Once you pair that sensor, there's not even an on and off switch, right? You move that sensor around, it auto pairs, and you're ready to go. So, you know, I encourage everybody to look at that. We're going to we'll release a kind of a live action webinar with Brad Faxon this week. So Faxon will be talking about what he uses Blast with his students. We've also got a lot of different materials. So on the coaches side of things, we've come up with some one-day lesson plans, right? So for a guy that doesn't understand Blast or how he's going to institute it, maybe, you know, I always encourage everybody, get a sensor right away, especially at the $75 price point. Test it yourself. You know, I'm not asking you to bring in a dozen sensors until you understand what you are, but I'm confident you're going to once you do. I mean, this is something that is easy to transition to your players. So get a sensor, get playing with it, reach out to us. You know, me and the golf team, I've got Cody with me as well, who's one of our territory managers, very educated. Another, you know, he's a PGA professional as well. You know, we're resources for you to lean on. You know, we're there to walk you through it. And we have the resources available. So, you know, reach out to us, look at our channels. Our website has a ton of training content. Our 4.10 app, if you go into the training center, there's a great deal of videos. There's also a number of drills that you can institute along with the metrics that you have, so you can get a better understanding of, okay, this is the outlier that I'm seeing. What are some of the drills that they prescribe or they recommend? And then say, okay, well, I like that, but, you know, I like to put a book down behind the putter to limit the backstroke. You know, there's a lot of different adaptations that you can do, but we give you a good solid base to get started and understand it. I think the best thing that you can do is just understand what we measure, right? Our sensor goes on to the end of the club. You know, we know everything, all the dynamics of that club. So we know loft and lie, right? We know that angle, we know rotation, and we know tempo and timing. So if you start to let your mind wrap around what we capture, you can say, well, you know, what am I trying to get out of my student, right? If I'm just trying to get them to stop over swinging, we're just looking at backswing length, right? So now you're just saying, okay, well, take a swing here. All right, that was your backswing length. Now let's see if you can repeat that. And maybe you prescribe that when they leave, when they're on the practice tee, that they never let that get longer, right? They never overextend and get into that reverse C or early extension or something that they're doing. But those are the things that you can do. So the more educated you are, and, you know, the numbers we provide are very easy to digest if you take the time to look at it, right? So we know that, like, you know, we talk about backstroke time and forward stroke time equals total time, and backstroke time and forward stroke time divided is tempo, right? So, you know, by knowing those two numbers, you already know the four numbers, right? And loft and lie, we know that, you know, if the face is closed down on impact, we know that the hands must have moved forward, right? Or if the toe is up, we know the hands moved down. Or if the toe's in the ground, we know it moved up. So use that common sense in saying, well, this is what happened, and do those visuals, you can educate yourself very quickly, but we're always the resource there, and we have a great deal of content around it. So, you're never going to be left high and dry in understanding any of this information.
Yeah, that was one of the things that it's always impressed me with you guys is the amount of information you have available about the products, about the different data points that come through the sensor, and your customer service is unmatched in my opinion. You guys are really, really good about staying in touch with your customers. So Ryan, I really appreciate your time. I'm excited myself to jump back into using this, and I really feel that you guys are, especially with 4.0 and filling that gap there that you had. Your great product before that, but now it's even better, and I'm excited to see what's to come in the future. Thanks for your time, my friend, and we will definitely talk soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.